Here we go. 3 new albums on new release day.
All 3 of them sounding quite different from each other.
It's true, and I like when that happens. I like when we have a very diverse day. It kind of makes the day more interesting compared to when you have 3 thrash albums the same day. It's like you get a little bit fatigued on things like that. So this is a good way to keep it fresh. I like that. I started my day with One Assassination Under God, Chapter 1 by Marilyn Manson. Now, we reacted to a couple of the videos,
3,
which I believe were As Sick as the Secrets Within.
Yes.
Right? I think the song's got a fantastic hook, right? The song as a whole, it's still growing on me, but the hook is killer. Raise the Red Flag.
Yep.
This is a highlight on the album for me. I love this song. I like the message behind it, which is similar to the message of Lunchbox, which is fighting back against bullies, essentially. Time to beat up the bullies to get the bullseye off my back is a cool line. My red flag is your white flag soaked in blood. Just really cool lyricism there. And the other one we reacted to was Sacrilegious, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, so that one stands out on the album. It's got kind of a swingy kind of beat to it.
Yeah. You compared it in a reaction to The Beautiful People.
I did, yeah. And that's also a standout track. So I think he picked 3 of the stronger tracks to be singles. But other than that, I still thought this was a pretty strong album, but with like periods of lull, periods of like, what is this kind of stuff going on? So I honestly don't have many notes other than the 3 singles, to be honest. The other songs kind of were I was kind of just trying to absorb them and trying to feel them out. And there was parts of each of them that I kind of was like, oh yeah, I'm digging this, but then parts I was like, oh, I'm not sure. But I think the thing with Marilyn Manson is he writes sleepers. These are songs that you listen to once and you kind of go, what's that? And then eventually you hear it a couple more times and you're like, holy shit, that's really well written.
Yeah.
That's really catchy. That's really clever. And he really tends to like captivate me in that sense.
I mean, in fact, it was his music that inspired the entire reason behind the way we review albums.
It was, yes.
Literally, like, the music from this band is why we do what we do.
Exactly, which is an interesting thing. And I feel like, my enjoyment throughout this album was pretty constant, but this feels like a comeback album. Like, he never really went away. Like, We Are Chaos was 2020.
2020. It was 4 years ago.
Yeah, 4 years ago. But we all know he went through some rough patches and things like that, and some hardships and things. This, to me, feels like a comeback album. It feels like he's like healthier. He's present. He's writing thought-provoked lyrics. There's a philosophy behind it.
New band behind him.
He's got a new band behind him. It feels like he's turned over a new leaf, and he's basically saying, "Fuck the haters." If you've ever wronged me, or if you've ever, doubted me, fuck you. I'm back. I'm here. I'm doing my thing, and this is how it's going to be. And I respect that, and I like that. So overall, good stuff from Marilyn Manson.
Yeah, I mean, I overall generally enjoyed the album, and I was really excited to see what atmosphere we were going to get, because every album is basically like kind of its own kind of big experience. There's no real 2 Manson albums that kind of sound like the same thing. Like, they all have their own distinct personalities. And I really like, just off the bat, the grim atmosphere of the title track. And it had this synth in the background that I thought was pretty cool. And then when the band kicks in, they got this good groove, and I like that too. And I noticed that a few times throughout this album, like, yeah, the band sounds good. And I recall this is a new band. So there's also a refresher with that as well, just with the sound of the album in that sense. I found that, there was kind of an old school vibe. And what I mean by that is that in some aspects it kind of, and we even said this in some of the reactions as well, kind of reminded me of like Triptych era Manson content. You know, like there's stuff you can hear from here that kind of calls back to stuff from like Hollywood, Mechanical Animals, and Antichrist Superstar. And I thought that was pretty cool. Like No Funeral Without Applause totally sounds like a song from that era.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, kind of like a new rebirth kind of thing. I kind of felt that as well. Like, it felt like a really fresh album, and like a new life has been breathed into the project, which was pretty cool. As Sick as the Secrets Within, it makes a lot of sense in context with the album sonically, And as I'm listening to it, I'm like, this sounds a lot like Coma White, like same vibe.
Yeah.
And I like that. I think that's cool.
Yeah, I agree.
And Sacrilegious makes sense to where it needs to be in the record, and I get that. Not my favorite track, but it is quite catchy. Like, it is definitely an earworm kind of track. So then I found with this album, the first half felt really strong, and in the second half, it kind of just rode a consistent wave. It didn't really give me as much of the dynamics that the first half had, with the exception of Raise the Red Flag. I like that one. But overall, it was strong and felt like a refresher. And I'm really curious as to what Chapter 2 will sound like, assuming there is one. It's why call it Chapter 1 if there's going to be no other chapters? So what will it sound like, and when will it happen?
I don't know. Those are good questions. That for me, that's jumping a little bit too far ahead of the game. This album just dropped.
It just dropped.
On it, but I get the feeling. I get the mystery behind it. Why call it Chapter 1? There's got to be something else happening.
There's got to be more to this if it's called Chapter 1. If it wasn't meant to have more, it would just be called One Assassination Under God, and that's it. So,
anyways, the next album we're going to talk about today, The Last Will and Testament by Opeth. Now, we've covered this band on the channel a few times. We reviewed Ghost Reveries. We reviewed Etiqueta de Dedo, and
I gave them both toe tags.
Yeah, and I gave Ghost Reveries, I gave a 7, and Etiqueta de Dedo I gave a 3. So my opinion on Opeth is very like up and down. I'm very kind of polarized when it comes to this band.
To be fair, the two albums that we reviewed are like pretty different sounding.
They are pretty different
Completely
sounding.
different eras of sound for the band.
It's true, and it's interesting that you still gave them both toe tags, and my ratings were like almost polar opposite ends kind of thing. So this album, so I put it on, I'm excited. I'm looking at it. The very first thing I noticed is the runtime, 50 minutes, and I went, that's pretty good. Any albums that push an hour or more, that's a bit of a warning sign for me, right? I like things concise. I'm a very concise guy, and that doesn't translate well when I talk because I tend to repeat myself a lot and things like that. But
the way you set that up, just like I look at the runtime,
it's pretty good. So yeah, it's about 51 minutes. Awesome, off to a good start. So the album plays, and my overall impression was that was pretty good. I generally enjoyed what I heard. There were some nice little moments in there, but my my overlapping, the more prominent feeling I have about this album and the band is that it feels to me just like the same as other Opeth albums do. And again, this is a band that I've struggled to really get into, and I'm not exactly sure what is going on. So there's things like, it feels like the ultimate goal is to kind of like surprise the listener. Like you're listening to one thing and all of a sudden this thing happens, and you're listening to that and all of a sudden that thing happens. And I think somebody like TV Fish would go, whoa, now they're doing this?
Now they're doing that?
Now they're doing this cool thing?
Oh, that's such a cool
thing.
But
me, when I'm listening to it, I just go, oh, now they're doing that. Oh, now they're doing that. And it just doesn't affect me the same way. And I'm not sure why. So, track number 1, for example, these are all just called, basically, Section 1, Section 2, Section 3, Section 4, Section 5, Section 6, Section 7, and then a story never told.
Yeah, the idea behind it, I mean, the concept, it's a concept album.
It's a concept album.
It's basically
about a guy's last
will.
Writing, his will.
His will being read out, and, you know, who gets his riches, and there's some mystery of it, you know, involved out of the
drama,
kids or whatever. Yeah. So the idea behind it is that the album is a reading of it. So Section 1 of the will, Section 2, all the way, and then a story never told is probably a big reveal of like, whoa, this is a big part of his life. What the heck?
Exactly. So it's an interesting way that they kind of constructed that. But Section number 1, which is track number 1, there's a lot of stuff happening. To me, it just felt kind of typical for the band, and I'm kind of trying to figure out a way to explain like how I feel about it, and it feels like just mood swings. It feels like if you could picture somebody having mood swings, that's how I feel like this band is. Where like 1 second it's like calm and serene, and next second it's like driving like, it's like bipolar in a way, right? And it kind of flips back and forth between those two things. And it does that a lot. That's basically the nature of this band. The first few tracks kind of all just happened. I couldn't believe when I looked at I looked at the my track listing and I was on track 5 all of a sudden. I went, holy crap, where did tracks 1 through 4 go? That happened so fast. And I listened to it a couple times and they kept doing that. Like those few tracks, I kind of feel like they don't blend together because again, there's not a lot of stuff happening in there. But I don't know, they just feel like a one pack of music. And maybe they're supposed to be. Maybe section 1, section 2, maybe it's all supposed to be a big continuation from each other. Once section 5 comes, track number 5, things change. You get another song with some swinging action in it. And there's certain parts where it almost sounds like they're just jamming, like they're just winging it. And it almost sounds like they're just winging it and whatever happens. But they're such a tight unit and they're so familiar with each other as musicians that it just works. That's what it sounds like to me. I could be completely wrong. But then yeah, you got these things that are just going on and then it gets heavy for a little bit and then it's like that for 30 seconds and then it goes back to this and then it goes back to that. And it's just bouncing back and forth and it almost feels directionless in a way, which I guess can be appealing to people, especially prog fans, because prog is a very directionless genre. And if that's the kind of thing you like, then that's what's going to appeal to you. The one that stood out to me the most, though, was the following track, which was section number 6. This one has a much more punchy, kind of upbeat kind of flow to it. It had this sweet little drum break around the 2:30 mark. Yeah, it was really cool.
That was sick.
Yeah, and I really liked how the drum break was going, and then Michael starts singing before the drum break's over, and they kind of bleed together for a second, and then fades into the rest of the song. What else happens in there? Yeah, after the drum break, it goes to like a pretty basic 4 to the floor kind of rhythm, and then it plays that for a bit. Then the double bass kicks in. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on, but I don't know. I have trouble really focusing on the songs in their entirety. I think there's too much happening for me. And this is a similar problem I have with a lot of prog. Dream Theater's another band that I struggle with because of this. There's just too much stuff they're throwing in there. Devin Townsend does the same thing. But then again, there is prog bands and prog albums that I do like, they do stuff like this, but just not as much, or maybe not as
the
drastic.
Contrast isn't as drastic, perhaps.
Maybe it's the contrast. Maybe the contrast isn't so dark and so stark in other albums.
Yeah, I think a really good example to kind of illustrate his point is an album we reviewed a while ago, Iconoclast by Symphony X. And I think again, Symphony X in general is the kind of prog band that is a bit more to your liking, and they're not as harsh with the contrast to sound like that, but they are still by all means a prog band.
That's right. So just one last note before I'll let you take the floor is the last track, Story Never Told. I don't know what it is, but there's some melody or something in this song that reminds me of another Opeth song. And I wanted to write it as like a callback that they were doing, but I couldn't think of what the song was. But I like the fact that they're doing that. I like, we point that out on this channel when we notice it, bands that have callbacks to the previous albums and things like that. And there was definitely one in this song. I just don't know their catalog well enough to really remember where it was. But overall, my enjoyment of this album was pretty good. I think a few more listens, getting used to the changes and used to the directionless, as I called it, is a good way to make it a little bit more palatable and make it a little bit more easily to digest and listen to. But overall, still pretty good stuff from Opeth.
So, I think it's pretty clear. I'm a big fan of this band.
You are.
This album is like if you take the last 13 years of Opeth content and apply it to their old school sound. Because it felt like, obviously, we're back in, the realm of death metal again. He's growling again. First time we've heard Michael growl on an album since Watershed, which was 2008. And it felt like all of the basically progressive rock-esque stuff that they were doing, from Heritage through Incauda Venenum, they took all that stuff and basically did a harder version of it all. And I was blown away. I loved the album. There were 2 singles. Sections 1 and 3 were the singles. Section 1 was the first one. And the growls are back, yes, but there's a dark atmosphere in this album that it was like basically kind of like a hallmark of the older sound from this band. And Ghost Reveries is a great example of that. I think they got a similar atmosphere as such, and it's just crazy. Like, no one really thought we'd ever kind of see this sound from this band again, and here we are. There's this initial riff in section 2 that I thought was really good. Kind of wished that it lasted longer, but they do bring it back later in that song. So, you know, it goes on this journey before it comes back. So, Section 3 being the other single, I loved it when it dropped. I still love it now. What I kind of like about this album's pacing is that basically built into the songs are breaks. You know, for you, I guess it's like this kind of inconsistent sound, but it's also in a sense like they go hard for a bit and then they'll lighten up to give you some breathing room and then they'll hit hard again. Because if they hit hard all the time, it might not convey as well and those moments might not hit as hard if it's just all sounding like that. But having the lighter moments gives you, you know, the other side of the coin so that when they play the hard stuff again, it hits harder than it normally would. There is a change up that happens in Section 4 that felt kind of sudden. Like that one I'm like, okay, whoa, we're here now, what the heck? But the chill riff they have there is really cool. Like it has flute in it, I think there's a song that has a harp in it as well. Lots of really cool instrumentation. You mentioned Section 5. There's a hard riff in that one, and this is funny. The hard riff in that one that reminds me of an older Opeth song.
Yeah.
The callback, it reminded me of Serenity Painted Death from Still Life, which I thought was awesome, and I think a part of it is also hearing the super deep growls as well, like in that song too. But yeah, like there's a lot of sections of this album that are hard and cool, a lot of them that are jammy, a lot of them that are beautiful. There's so much different stuff going on, and I'm like, oh my god, this feels like a mix of everything they've done, and it's cool to see them go this direction after In Cauda Venenum, because it kind of felt like after that, where do you go from here? And it's like, whoa, okay. And I love that it's fresh, new, different, like...
I think they made the right choices.
Yeah,
like the direction that they're taking it now, yeah.
Yeah. The only note that I made on A Story Never Told, the only thing I said, A Story Never Told is a beautiful closer. That's it.
Fair enough.
Beautiful.
Anyways, guys, last album of the day, we have Merciless by Body Count. Now, TV Fish, remind me, have we covered Body Count on the channel?
I'm not sure, because the last album was Carnivore, and that was from 2020. I don't think we reviewed it.
We probably checked it out, though.
We've heard songs from it, like Bum Rush is on that one.
Yeah, but did we do reactions or something like that? I just don't know if we've covered it on the channanyl. Anyways,
maybe we reacted to a song. I'm not sure. We've been doing this for a while. It's hard to remember.
I just don't remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Merciless. Here we go. It's Body Count. It's basically metal with rapping on top of it.
Yeah.
And that's what you get, and that's what it is. Both elements of that are really cool, and it sounds really good put together. This album's got some features on it that are pretty cool. I'm sure you're going to mention something, because before we started this video, you mentioned that there were some of the highlights for you. But you got Corpse Grinder on a song. You got Joe Bad from Fit for an Autopsy on a song. You got Howard Jones on a song. And you have David Gilmour also on a song, which is a pretty good quad right there. By the way, so David Gilmour, let's just talk about Comfortably Numb. It's kind of like a reimagining of Comfortably Numb. It's not a cover.
It's not like a cover. It's kind of like a non-cover.
I'd call it like a non-cover. I call it a reimagining. That's how I worded it. But Dave Gilmour plays guitar, and I don't know if he's actually singing or if they're just pulling his vocals from the original song. But he's got a vocal presence on the song with the original lyrics on those parts. But other than that, Ice-T is just rapping his own verses, and it's pretty good.
Now, what if I told you there was a fifth feature on this album?
Max Cavalera.
Max Cavalera.
Honestly, I got a note and I forgot about it.
Surprised. Well, you said David Gilmour. I'm like,
you were looking at me funny. I was like, did I say something wrong?
Max.
I forgot. Okay, Max Cavalera's on here as well with Drug Lords.
Which, by the way, like, all of those features is like heavy business. You know what I mean? To get all those guys to feature on your album, that's awesome.
Yeah, and all those songs are really good as well. So a couple highlights for me, let's talk about that. So track number 5, Fuck What You Heard. So this song is, it's Ice-T being Ice-T. Now this guy made a career off of promoting criminal behavior, hating on cops, that whole thing. But one interesting thing he does in this song is he compares Republicans to Bloods and Democrats to Crips. And if you think about it, Republicans are red, Democrats are blue. And he says something about Fox is definitely Blood and CNN is definitely Crip.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that he's kind of parodying, or not parodying, but making fun of political discourse, but not taking a side. That's one thing I really hate when bands talk about politics, is when they take a side, I feel like they're just alienating half their fan base automatically. I think the goal is talk about it, point it out, but don't take a side. Another great example of this on this album is World War, which is a song, basically, he's just attacking the subject of war, but not really blaming anybody. He's like, anybody could be the fault of World War III. And he calls out a whole bunch of different countries and entities and things like that.
Yeah.
But you could tell he's not taking sides. And I think that's, to me, that's just good writing. That's good, clever writing. Mm-hmm. He might have his own political opinions. He might be leaning one way or the other, as far as whatever stance. But he's not really letting that show. And, there might be a few lyrics here and there where you might go, he's kind of like, believes this politically or that politically. But the fact that they're writing more down the middle, I just really commend that. I really think that's a really good way to do it. Some standout tracks, Do or Die. That was really cool because they got gunshots during the chorus to help the rhythm, help the beat.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
You don't see it too often these days, but it is cool when bands do that.
Yes, and I've heard it before, but usually it's like a cock and a shot, right? That's usually what you hear. This was different. This was like multiple shots creating the beat. Well, I thought that was really cool.
Main thing that kind of comes to my mind when I think about that is an unorthodox, the song Forward.
Yeah, that's a cock and a shot.
Well, no, they do the whole, the guy like unloads the clip in the chorus.
Oh yeah, he does. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like the whole thing. And it's so cool. Yeah.
Right.
It's cool.
Is that, yeah. I'll have to listen to it again. I don't know if that was actually gunshots or like that was just a snare going.
I'm pretty sure it's a gunshot. It's been a while. I mean, the album that song's from is on the two-toe tag list. Great album.
Yeah, a new kind of horror. Another thing that stood out to me is that song number 9, Lying Motherfucker. Now this song overall felt kind of juvenile. Just this one I didn't really like lyrically. I felt it was kind of silly, but the solo on the song is something else. This solo has a lot of personality to it. I was listening to it going, wow, this feels like something I haven't really heard before. Again, hard to put my finger on exactly what that is. And I'd like to listen to it again, but when I heard it the first time, I was like, this is pretty unique. This is actually kind of cool. So, yeah, overall, pretty solid album. Great features, some good lyrics, and that combination of rap and metal, they're making it work quite well. So
yeah, we've seen it work well before, and Body Count, they're one of the torchbearers for it.
I would say so, yeah.
So I'm going to reiterate that all the covers, or not covers, all the features are great, and all the songs that they are a part of are great. The Purge, which is very directly based on the movie.
They're basically describing the movies, yeah.
It's basically, it's about the movies. That's the one with Corpse Grinder. Awesome song, like literally all of them. Joe Bad's verse in Psychopath, that was sick, and I love how he opens it up with a scream to go into his verse. Thought that was really cool as well. Do or Die, I agree, is a really good one. I also especially like that it's a slower mid-album beater. Yeah. I thought that was cool to break up the pace a little bit. Drug Lords, which is the Max Cavalera one, that was a more thrashier song, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, it has a Sepultura vibe to it.
Exactly, like it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of like cool dynamics that were present on this album. And I also liked the Comfortably Numb non-cover. I feel like non-cover is the best way I can describe it, because it's like, yes, but it's really not a straight up just cover.
Yeah.
And he put his own lyrics on it and made things apply to himself, which I thought was really, really cool. But yeah, like overall, a strong album. Like Body Count, I'd say is a consistently pretty strong band.
I would agree. Anyways, guys, that's it for our 3 albums, and we discussed which album to review, and we decided we were going to review One Assassination Under God Chapter 1. However, we also want to review The Last Will and Testament by Opeth. So what we're going to do is we're going to review Marilyn Manson this week, and then next week, we're going to review Opeth. So you're going to get both reviews. And yeah, be sure to come back for both those when they drop. But
so
anyways,
next week, the Manson album review is going to drop, and then the week after is when you're going to get The Last Will and Testament. Because we still got to take a week to listen.
Still got to take a week and listen to it, exactly. It gets the full fair shot, as they always do. Anyways, guys, that's it for this First Impressions video. Leave your thoughts down below and let us know what you guys thought of these albums. If you liked one more than the other, just sound off down below and let us know what you thought. Subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. I'm Vile Self.
I'm TV Fish.
We'll see you guys in the next one. Keep those heads banging.